And with that, let's pivot. And we're gonna do Team C's, because I wore a Team C's shirt yesterday on stream. I want to kind of elaborate upon my stance on Team C's, and this video will kind of support that. I think it's good that they are raising awareness, and people like Mr. Beast with 100 million subscribers on YouTube are pushing information to his subscribers, his community, to let them know climate change is a problem and we can do something about it. It's not going to be a life-changing thing. It's not going to change the world, but it might change the mindset of quite a few people out there. And for that, I think it's important. Let's watch this video. This is a video by Simon Clark. He's a climate change YouTuber, and he is a atmospheric scientist. He's from the UK. His videos are phenomenal. I have learned a lot from him. I do have a degree in sustainability, so I had a little bit of knowledge going into this, but I think for a beginner or anyone who's really interested in climate change and learning more about it, his channel is a great place to start.
Of trash. 1.6 million square kilometers of waste, plastic, sewage. Wait, sorry, wrong footage. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is the most visible example of the plastic pollution problem in the world's oceans. Much as we are polluting the
If you're not aware of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, it is a huge chunk of plastic waste in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that is literally visible on satellites. It's so big. It's like the size of an island. It is absolutely unbelievable that it's real.
The world's air with CO2 and other gases, we are polluting the world's oceans with our waste, notably plastics.
Enter Team C's, the new project from Mark, I used to work at NASA Rover, and Mr. Capitalism on Steroids Beast, which aims to raise $30 million to remove 30 million pounds of plastic waste from the world's oceans, rivers, and beaches. But this project is really rather problematic, and I have serious concerns that it could actually end up doing more harm to the topic of ocean plastics than good. We could end up in the situation where these big projects expend a whole load of effort and good intentions and achieve very little. So this matters.
And clearly,
yeah, and this is also a real thought. If they had put the resources, the people, the time, the energy into, you know, some other foundations and such, maybe more impact could have been had than what was.
In 2015, it was estimated that there's approximately 150 million tons of plastic in the
And that's
oceans,
2015.
and that humans are adding approximately 8 million tons of it every single year.
Team C's aims to remove 30 million pounds of plastic from the oceans. In sensible units, that's about 13,600 tons, which sounds like a lot, but not when compared to the 150 million tons of plastic in the ocean. 13,600 tons is, at most, about 0.01% of all the plastic in the ocean. In fact, if we assume that 8 million tons is added to the oceans every year, again, an underestimate, then over the 3-year lifespan of Team C's removing 13,600 tons, 24 million tons of plastic waste will be added to the oceans. Or to think of it another way, Team C's will remove from the oceans in 3 years that which is added in under 15 hours.
That's bonkers. I think that that's such an important figure right there, that so much plastic is in the ocean that what they want to do in 3 years is just going to be added back in 15 hours.
The focus needs to be more upstream, so in the actual production of these things.
Yep.
Team C's
I agree.
impact on ocean plastics will be minimal, but this in itself isn't a reason to not do the project. In fact, the Team C's website says as much here in the small print. It's not a
Which is
project
good,
trying to be.
I think this is good, you know, provide all the information. Even if it is problematic, and even if it is just a band-aid or raising awareness, you know, they're real and upfront about it. So I think that is
the solution to all
important.
ocean plastics. However, the major issue with Team C's is that it generates a huge amount of attention around ocean plastics, which is great, but then directs that attention squarely at trying to clean up the ocean, rather than systematic changes that would actually make a difference.
If I'm laying here in the ocean covered in plastic and somebody comes in to help clean some of it up, oh, thank you. By the way, could you do something about the people who are just adding the plastic in?
Exactly.
My concern is with the
that's the whole thing is even if they're cleaning it up, people are still adding plastic. Companies are still producing plastic and throwing it in the ocean. And that's a bigger problem than getting the plastic out, because it's just like we talked about with CO2 emissions. If we continue to produce CO2, it's not going to be that impactful that we're pulling some of it out. That has a much smaller impact than if we stop producing CO2 and then start to pull it out afterwards. Same thing with plastic. If we stop producing plastic and stop throwing it into the ocean, that will have a much bigger impact than just picking it up as we continue to add more.
Now, I'm not suggesting that Mr. Beast and Mark have created this project just to chase clout and
you should watch the Team Trees video after. The Team Trees video is
seriously consulting with experts in the field.
He also did a follow-up video on Team Seas about the actual devices that they use to clean up and why that is also problematic.
There's also a very problematic sociological aspect to this project where rich countries have to clean up after developing countries, getting Instagram posts along the way, without providing the infrastructure for those developing countries to help the situation themselves. And
yeah, my dream, so realistically, like, you know, if I was given like $5 million today, my dream scenario would be to create infrastructure or programs to help countries that aren't able to establish renewable infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure, or, you know, clean water infrastructure. I'd love to be able to help to provide that. And this is kind of what he's talking about. You know, they raised $30 million. And instead of providing infrastructure to help these countries or communities even, they're just pulling trash from the ocean.
More impactful actions would be things like investing in technologies or innovations to produce either less plastic, less virgin plastic, biodegradable alternatives, investing in, particularly in developing countries, more formal waste disposal,
all I can
holding
say is,
producers more
this
accountable,
is all what I was just saying.
lobbying governments to actually make bigger,
this would have a larger,
faster commitments,
longer reaching impact
pledges
than
are being
what
made,
was
but so
actually
many
done.
of them are still voluntary, and it just doesn't work. Even if every single government or industry pledge was stuck to,
and most pledges aren't stuck to.
In the problem.
Better to just address the problem than address the symptoms. If you break your leg, you're not just going to take pain meds, right? You're going to take pain meds to help with the pain, but you're also going to, you know, maybe set the break, put it in a cast. You know, you're going to address the problem. You're not just going to deal with the symptoms. You know, if you can do the thing that's very public, very visual, very good looking, you're going to do that 9 times out of 10, even if the other option would be more impactful but less noticeable.
I don't want to belittle these guys, and I don't want to say that doing a beach clean isn't a good thing, because, you know, who's to say that that bottle cap that you pick up wouldn't have otherwise ended up in the stomach of a seabird, or that plastic bag wouldn't have ended up in the neck of a seal or something. So
why this is still a good thing or worthwhile, because
these campaigns and
it is helping. It is making an impact. It's just they could have done more with what they had.
And they're not. They do play a role, but on their own, they're not actually making a very big.
It's just like the carbon capture. You know, it's an impact, but not by itself.
Let me paint you 2 possible futures. In one scenario, there is no Team Seas. Plastic builds up and builds up in the oceans, and eventually people see that we need to find a solution. They limit the use of single-use plastics, and they invest in infrastructure in developing countries so that they can get rid of their waste in a sustainable way. In the second scenario, however, Team Seas does exist, and it removes some plastic from the oceans, about 0.01% of the total, and people feel like they've done their bit. Meanwhile, more and more plastic is added to the oceans. Become overconfident in the impact of their action via Team Seas, and less likely to actually take meaningful action, limiting the production of plastic waste in the future. So Team Seas as a project could lead to people being overconfident and mislead their attention to an ineffective solution. But of course, this only becomes a problem if we let it. By putting Team Seas in context, like in this video, and by making the broader societal problem known, that we produce a lot of plastic pollution, a lot of it single waste, and that we need to widely roll out alternatives and better infrastructure, we can turn Team Seas into a broader awareness campaign for the issue of ocean plastics. Without that, Team Seas has the potential to delay, as I outlined in those 2 scenarios, meaningful action on ocean plastics.
And I think that's why some people are concerned.
Team Seas has raised an enormous amount of attention and
bigger
money,
things
which is
that
great,
could be done that would
and
make
then
a bigger impact
a really small
than what
amount
is being
of cleanup, rather than the widespread structural changes that are necessary to fix the problem.
It's all the systemic problems in our world. Things like Team Seas are important. So I think that that's good. And like Simon said, you know, donate. Be a part of it. Be a part of the community. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be a part of it and wanting to help in whatever way you can. But don't draw the line there. Don't do that and think like, okay, I've done my part, it's over. So like, yeah, I bought a Team C's shirt. I got one for my brother for Christmas as well. But I didn't draw the line there. You know, I'm doing things like this. I continue to work in the renewable energy field, and I try to talk to people about climate change whenever I can. If I can make it into a conversation and not sound like a shill or like I'm trying to be political or anything, I'm always going to try to do that because I think it's worth it.